And hello, everybody. I'm Rick Dancer. Welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And oh boy, are we going to get real tonight? On this episode, um, you are going to learn so much about some things that you've probably never heard of ever. Um, People who are born XXY. Um, a gentleman I know very well. In fact, there's video in the open on this, Dan, from our trip to the Steens Mountains when you and I got to be cowboys and my wife was a cowgirl. There's video that I just was watching going, that's when I was with Dan right there. There's the video. So I met Dan on we were doing some work for the Toyota travel show and went to the Steens Mountain Lodge and got to be cowboys for 3 days or something, and met Dan because he always goes up there, and he and I had a lot in common. And then I see on social media the other day, he wrote a book. Dan has a very interesting genetic difference that 1 in 5 men have. It's XXY. He's going to explain some of that. But he just wrote a book, and it's I don't even know how to describe this to you. But what I want you to do is put on your I'm really open to hearing new things hat for this interview, because it's going to challenge you a little bit. But you know what I believe is that God does things in very different ways than we sometimes think. And we've always got to be ready for something that comes out of nowhere. And I think this is going to do that for you. So let's get our sponsors in here, because we can't do this without our sponsors. Trusted and caring. Dr. Bratlin is a friend of mine. He believes in freedom of speech, that everybody should have a voice. And that lines up perfectly with what I do. Albert Taylor, they work with people with different abilities in our community of Springfield and Eugene. I'm always looking for employees. If you're looking for a cool job that makes you feel like you're somebody at the end of the day, they're the people to work for. Also, Greg Hinkle with New American Funding here in Montana, but also works out of Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. He's a mortgage broker, and he is super helpful if you need somebody to give you some information that you may not have known before. Montana Oral Surgeons and Dental Implant Center right here in Helena. They're also in Bozeman. And I always have to think of this. They have so many locations, Butte and Great Falls, excuse me. And if you're looking for dental work, they have what I want. And that's the drugs to knock me out so I don't have to remember what happened. That's how I judge a good dentist. And back in Oregon, Rain Heating and Air Conditioning. You're in the middle of the summer there right now. You should get on their program where they come out and check your system for you so you don't have to have it. Mine always goes out when it's either super cold or super hot. And then Matt McCarl over at New Leaf Hyperbarics and Wellness Center. If you go in there and tell them what you're looking for, they're having a special right now too. But go in and tell him, and he'll give you a deal just for saying that you're on. You were on Rick Dancer's show. You saw it on Rick Dancer's show. He'll make you a deal. But they do have a deal going right now. Just go to his website and you can find out more. All right, so here we go. Let's just bring Dan on here. I got to. Boy, you're way down there on the list. Hey, Dan, how you doing? I'm going to switch you over because now it looks more like I'm looking at you. Okay. The way my angles are here, you got to do this. So Dan's writing a book. It's going to be out in October in the editing process, you hope. Tell folks the name of the book.
So real quick, I do need to correct. So I did look at living with XXY, and it's 1 in 500 men, not 1 in 5 men. That makes more sense.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think that's
1 in
right.
500 men live with this condition, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But it all kind of intertwines in with your book and what's going on.
It does. So the book's called "The Man in My Grandfather's Bathroom Door." It's probably one of the longest names ever, but it kind of goes together, and it is kind of a humor. It's not funny, but there is some funny stuff in the book. So it does the humor.
And this is a story about your life and kind of what you've discovered about your life.
Yeah, pretty much. It starts out with my brother telling me that Santa Claus is not real, and at that age I was 6. I was heartbroken. Like, what do you mean Santa's not real? Like they make things about him. He's in the malls. Like, how is he not real? I've seen him. And so it kind of made me question what else was not real. Like, what else were my parents lying to me about, kind of a thing. And at that time, I didn't really know what God was. We weren't going to church. We weren't doing any of that. And so the book kind of talks about the pathway to finding God. Um, and it just happened to be through my grandfather's bathroom door where I found this voice.
So tell people about the door, because you were just explaining this to me a little bit ago. And so I love this story about, and let me introduce this to get you to there. So Dan's mom, they're selling the house or something. And anything you want from grandpa? And he goes, yeah, I want the bathroom door. And your mom's probably like, what in the hell are you asking for the bathroom door? But you had a very personal relationship with the backside of the bathroom door.
Yeah. So I think I was like 7, maybe 7. It was we used to travel to Ohio every year. I'm from Arizona, or at the time I was from Arizona, and we would go to Ohio. And it was just this tiny little bathroom, like on the side of their kitchen. And one day I was just sitting there, going to the bathroom, and I looked at the back of the door, and it just made this shape of, and I say man because I think, well, you'll see in the book, it's kind of strange. So it actually was a wolf. And so the figure was a wolf in a door. It wasn't a man. But later in life, I was talking to this man. And the book explains why I say man and not wolf in the door. But it was a wolf. And so I talked to this wolf person in this door from 7 years old all the way to I think I sold the house when I was like 16. And then after that, which is little weird, I still talk to the door even when I wasn't in Ohio. I would just talk to it like in my mind, and the door would talk back. And obviously it wasn't like I was talking to a person. I believe I was just talking to myself.
So this was you finding someone else to communicate with, but it was actually you.
Yes. And so if you read my book, it does explain in the beginning, I really thought I was just talking to myself. I'd ask questions like, hey, I like a girl in school. What should I do? Like, there was stuff and that's what stuff, I didn't really have many friends growing up. And so I did have friends, but I didn't have as many probably as other people. I had like one good friend growing up. And so we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. So I would just talk to my door friend and say like, hey, I like, Christine, what should I do about it? And then the answer back was technically me, but I always thought it was more than that, like a higher power. I felt like it was more, but who knows? It could have been, but really, I think
if you're really honest, do you think it was a higher power and not you?
Sometimes I did, because sometimes there was parts that, I probably would have never said that. But again, it could have been an encouragement. Like, it could have been me just encouraging myself to be a better person or be a good person. And so really, it's like that devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. It could have just been always kind of an angel feeling, because it never gave me bad advice.
So now that you're older, though, do you look back and what you know now that we're going to discuss a little bit later, do you think that was a higher power?
I think it started out as me just wanting to connect with someone, because I was kind of a loner and didn't have many friends. And it was kind of like my imaginary friend in the door. And then now that I'm older, obviously I don't talk to the door like I do, but I do pray to God, and I do talk to God in a sense that I don't think of the door anymore, but I do pray in a weird way, and I talk to God in a weird way. And I do like this dream thing that I do, where I can connect with the other side through dreams. And that part is actually talking to a higher power, kind of talking to God in through my dreams, where I listen to my dreams and actually take what he tells me, or she. I say he and she because sometimes it's a woman and sometimes it's a man. I don't think God is a woman or a man. I think God is just a being.
Right.
I don't think it's one gender. I think it's just there. But the voice that tells me stuff, I actually take that and put it into life situations. So real quick, when I met you at the Steens Ranch, the next year I had this crazy dream at the ranch, and that experience at the Cowboy Ranch, I go every year. I love it. I have the craziest dreams. I feel things there that I don't feel anywhere else. It's just like so magical.
And this is a place where you guys, what happens is, I wish I should have put the video on here because
totally off grid too. It's awesome. No
there's
phones,
no
no
phones.
laptops.
They train you. Dan's been there for years, but because he does computer work and video work for the people that own it, and they're the sweetest people. But they teach you for a couple hours how to ride a horse. Then you ride 2 hours out to this bunkhouse, and you're there for a couple days. He's longer, but for us, you go out there, and then they take you out in the morning, and you're rounding up cattle. And there's no, it's not like. It's not Fako Disney World.
It's city slicker.
Like there's cows on the hill, and she says, "Go get them," and you're going, "I'm going to ride my horse up there and get that cow." And then Dan, when we were there, he'd never given a shot, like an injection to a calf.
Oh, that's right. You were there for that one.
Yeah, and the calf was sick, and they rounded it up, and Dan had to wrestle it down and then give it a vaccine. And I'll never forget what you said, which I think this ties into this whole thing, Dan. Kind of funny, because I remember when I interviewed you, you said, when I did that, I felt like a man. I felt like, this is such a manly thing. And I think I felt the same way just riding out there. I felt like when I was out there, one of the things I said in that story was my grandfather and their family, the Maxwells, who are in Baker City, not far from where we were, and they were cattle ranchers. And so when I'm out there, I was saying in the video, I feel like this is kind of natural. Like this is in my blood. And I've never been around that, like to do that. I've raised goats and pigs and that kind of stuff 4-H wise, but it felt like that whole thing. And I think that's where Dan and I really connected. And we have some other things that are kind of similar, but that's just for us to know. But it was like, this all ties into your kind of your story.
Yeah. So a year
later, what happened? A year
later, the main host, Tim, told me, like, we have this opportunity to make a ton of money. We're going to start selling the cows. Like, it's a multi-million-dollar thing. We want you involved because you're part of the website. You're part of our crew. And I'm kind of part of the family now. And I said, oh, this is great. And I'm running the numbers in my head. Like, I can make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, this is awesome. So that night I had this dream where this voice came to me and said, you cannot take any money from this family. And you also cannot go into business with this family and earn any money. You can't personally take money from this family. Also, you cannot do this at this time in your life because their son, who's Seth, is supposed to be this person and supposed to take over this ranch with them and do this. And if you do it, you're going to cause this family to pretty much unfold and their business is going to fail. And so the next day, it's a dream, but it's like so real. Like I kind of freaked out that morning. I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, I get it. It makes sense. So at breakfast, I said, I'm out. I can't be part of this whole project. And they're like, well, why not? What happened? And I said, last night, the voice told me, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. And they said, oh my God, we've been trying to get Seth to be part of this crew for a long time. And he has this hesitation. And also the voice said that I'm supposed to help Seth realize his purpose with the family. And so I've been slowly getting Seth to come back and work for the family. Now Seth is doing all the Tiger Mustang stuff. And so I said, sorry, I just can't do it. I can't take any money from you guys. So I don't take any money from that company. We do all trade. And I just, I feel like the voice, it's true. If I do this, their family's going to go under and the business will go under. And so I take this and I listen to the voice and I live by it. It's crazy.
So does your friends and family think that you're nuts?
A little bit. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, but really it's not, because me helping this family.
No. I mean, because of the voice and because of what
Oh, hearing
is.
voices. It's not like I hear voices. I'm
No, no,
not
no, no. And I'm
schizophrenic.
not saying you are, Dan. I believe you. I'm just saying, do people not believe you because it's so different from what we're used to?
Yes. And so one thing that people don't do is listen. So you can go into nature, you can, you can dream it. Just listen around you. There's answers everywhere for life. And really, if you just listen, you can live this prosperous life. You know what's funny is after I said no to this huge thing with them, I scored a deal with a local company where I'm making like, good money. And I really think because I said no to them and I listened to what these dreams tell me is the reason I got this other job.
Right.
And I don't need to do what they're doing. And so,
And it wasn't like like you had a choice. You had a
yeah,
choice whether to listen to the voice, but you didn't know. And I think God's like that, don't you? It's like if you
yeah,
trust enough and just saying, hold on. I mean, because just hang on, something's coming, and then it gets replaced with the right thing. But we
yeah.
always tend to jump.
We want it right then and there. And we're so like money hungry that we think like, oh, we need to do this now. And I think as humans, that's kind of what we turned into, like phones and computers, and we want everything right now. And instead, if you just wait a little bit longer, things will happen. There's no rush for it. There's even part of my book where, you just slow down. Just, things take time. It doesn't happen overnight.
So talk to people about XXY and how this plays into your whole story. I'm
Well, and
guessing
this
it's
is,
pretty large.
yeah, so Klinefelter's is XXY. So men are born XYs, women are born XXs. I'm an XXY. We're all born men. Like technically, we're men. We all have men parts. But a lot of the men, the one thing that we all share is we're all sterile. So none of us can have kids. And then we're all tall. There's some other little features like some of our hands are really long, our feet are really long. Through puberty, our body doesn't know to stop growing, so we're super tall. Another thing we have, which I didn't mention this to you, kind of forgot, is we all have very low testosterone. And so growing up, so when I'm on TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy. And so I've been taking it for about 6 years now. But before that, my testosterone was like 120, which is like lower than a female.
Wow.
So it's prescribed by my doctor. I get tested every 6 months. I have to go through and all these tests to make sure everything's working correctly. And it's not like I'm huge now. I'm not like this bodybuilder guy. I just take testosterone to be a normal man.
So you also did, what you're unusual is because you're real hairy everywhere,
Yeah.
except your head.
Here.
Most of the men have very little chest hair.
Yeah. So like it's funny too. Like if you Google search Klinefelters, it'll show a man with like no hair and like actual boobs, and it's kind of a misconception. So yes, we do. Most of us have like when I was 13, 14, I had kind of like boobs for a little while, but they kind of went away and my pecs grew. But some men, it doesn't go away, especially if they don't work out. So we have to exercise a ton more than a normal guy, or we do start to grow like huge man boobs. And some of my friends that are Klinefelters guys, they do have like serious boobs, like where they almost need to wear a bra. And so again, it is like this. We're almost between a man and a woman. And
are you like a third? Would
yeah,
the medical community consider you a third gender?
Technically, we're not either one. So we could technically be a third gender. And I know there's a huge political thing going on with this gender thing. And it's not like, I'm not gay. I have a wife and I know I'm not gay. So I'm not a woman or a gay man. But there are some Klinefelters men that are gay. And I can see that because I do have, not that I have feelings that way, but sometimes I do feel like, I cry in dumb movies. I'm watching movies with my wife and I'm bawling and I look over at her and she's just like,
well, Dan,
what are you doing?
I do that. I mean, my wife, I'll be sitting in a movie thing and I'm over there, got tears, coming down my face. And he's looking, she goes, well, it's sad, but I didn't really think it was that sad.
Well,
And
and what you do too is you're pulling in those feelings as your own, and that's what we do. Klinefelter's men, we are empaths. We feel what other people are feeling, and we
seriously,
actually like take that on, and then we feel it, and we're bawling in movies too.
as a kid, that must have been pretty dang
Oh,
confusing.
I got bullied so bad. I remember one kid just punched me in the stomach because I wasn't good at soccer. I mean, I was super goofy, uncoordinated. This is pretty funny. When I turned 13, I grew 6 inches in 4 months. So I could dribble a basketball. I was good at stuff. I could run. At 13, I couldn't even walk. I was tripping over myself. I'd fall all the time. Like it was just super awkward. I was that awkward, weird kid, skinny man boob kid.
So when did you find out you had?
Not until I was 19, I was carrying a lazy boy up a flight of stairs by myself, idiot kid, and I got a hernia. And I went to the doctor for the hernia. And at that time, they're like, "Oh, your testicles are super small. We don't know what's going on." And I just, I didn't look at any other man's testicles. I didn't know they were small. Like, who knows that? I'm not going to show my parents. And so went to the doctor and then a bunch of tests. And then they realized, oh my gosh, you have XXY. And at that time, 1998, there wasn't much information on it. There was no, just Google. Well, there was Google, I think, back then, but it was very low. There wasn't any books on it.
But you were telling me too that is listed on like for abortions.
Yeah,
things like Down syndrome and like that this is listed as a reason someone might want to abort a child.
Yes. And so my friend Ryan, who started Living with XXY, started this nonprofit. It's called livingwithxxy.org. And he's trying to inform people that, we're all normal guys. He's even doing to like wear traits. So there's a bunch of surveys they send out. Like, so most of us are like into graphic design, photography. We work with our hands. We can build cars. Like I rebuilt an entire engine by myself. I rebuilt a carburetor, never done it before, just took the whole thing apart and rebuilt it. So we're really good with our hands. But again, my wife says like all men are good with their hands. So you could take that as, with a grain of salt. Like, yes, all men are good with their hands, but most likely all Klinefelter's men are really good at their hands, good at graphic designs, they're good at photography, they're good at building websites. And so we're all very similar. What I'm trying to do research on now is, do we have this extra power, this extra sense, this whole part of my book? Because I met a kid in Bend. He's 13 now, but when I met him, he was 9 or 10. His mom was struggling with him. They didn't know what he had. At 6 years old, he had like suicidal thoughts. And I grew up, I had suicidal thoughts my whole life because our testosterone's so low and we're just not normal kids.
So you would be semi-depressed and
all the time.
Right. When your testosterone's low, that's depression's often a signal.
Yep. And you just have like crazy up and downs. Like today's great, but tomorrow's horrible. And I still have some of those days where you just want to go to bed and start the day over. Yeah. I think we all have those.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
Today was one of those.
But this woman in Bend has this child and she just doesn't know what to do. Well, he had Klinefelter's and now he's on testosterone. I think he has the patch, which is a different type to take it. And I kind of mentored the kid a little bit. Like, he looks at me, I'm a successful businessman. I'm doing all these things. I wrote a book, like just all this stuff. And he has the same thing. Like, so now he's on the track team. I think he has a girlfriend now. I think he's 15 or 16 now. And he's like this new kid, this whole new life for this kid. And all he had to do was know he had Klinefelter's, know he needed this help. But he did have this sixth sense. I don't want to say sixth sense because it's weird, but he did see like ghosts as a kid, and his mom told me this whole story. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe we all, as Kleinsfelters, have this gift and we just don't know it. And
Right.
I don't know. It might be a long shot, but
Okay.
why
So,
did
what,
that?
so
Oh, yeah.
tell me the stories you didn't tell me before we turned on the camera.
Oh,
Why you think um, that? What are things that you see? Because doesn't that make kind of sense? Okay. One other question. I want you to do that, but before you get there, when you were growing up, did you feel less of a man?
yes. Oh, yeah. Like some reason I couldn't throw a football until like I was 13. I don't know why. What is super weird, but I would throw, and everybody would say like, "Oh, you throw like a girl, you run like a girl," which is super horrible because
When you're,
a lot
yeah.
of a lot of women run amazing. So saying that is horrible and a little sexist back then. But I was a kid, and so I was made fun of. I was bullied. I mean, there's a part in my book I talk about a bully that and the only thing that helped resolve it was my brother. My brother was there to kind of protect me and be my older brother, and he was a good older brother when we were younger. And so, yeah, being bullied. I mean, the worst was going into a locker room, and changing in front of other men. Or other boys. That's the worst experience ever. So I would actually not take my underwear off and just leave everything on underneath, and then just sweat and just stink all day because it was embarrassing.
Because you knew you didn't have very big testicles.
Just small and yeah, everything else works fine, but yeah, just small. And I was skinny. I was super skinny and man boobs, and at like
And
12, 13, other guys have like muscles, kids. I didn't have any muscles. I had
at
nothing.
that age, you have no hair because you're not, you
Right.
don't have the beard. Because now nobody would ever know you. I mean, because
No.
but for other men who deal with this, um, they don't have the body hair, so it's even
Worse.
more
Yeah,
in
the
your.
whole gym thing at school, changing in front of other boys, it should be. I think it should be outlawed. It's horrible. And with bullying back then, I mean, it was bad. I never wanted to go to PE. I didn't want to, I just didn't want to do any of that stuff. I mean, now I've been working out. I'm stronger now. I probably would beat up all those kids now, but back then I was not who I am now.
Okay, so now go to these stories. So what are you? Because Dan, I think what's kind of interesting to me about this is I've always been a big believer that your curse can be your gift if you know
What to do
how
with it?
to use it, how to
Yes.
use it. And
So
the things I always got picked on for as a kid, and they have all become my gift. And in college, I had a writing teacher, a creative writing teacher, said I was a horrible writer, and then I got the best news writing award in Eugene in the Oregon market for 15 years in a row. And it's not because all my vocabulary and my grammar were all proper. It's because I wrote from my heart. I knew how to grab people naturally, and it was just like I my feelings became my curse. They were always my curse because I got teased for them, or I respond to them too much, but they also became, once I learned how to tether them, they became the reason I write the way I do. I wrote a little blog for my wife yesterday. It was Dan and I also share anniversaries.
oh
Like
yeah, yes,
if we got to hear Dan, it was our anniversary yesterday. No, we're
yes,
not married, but
yeah.
but yeah, so I wrote this little thing online, and it just touched so many people. And my wife then wrote back and she goes, it's a not really sweet letter, but she goes, Rick, you have such a way with words, and you really understand that thing. And I think that's that because of that over feeling kind of thing. So what did you see? Like, what are these things going on?
So
Because I think you're onto something. I know some people are going to think you and I are like, need to be put out to pasture somewhere. But I think there's so little we know about God and about life and about the spiritual realm.
yeah,
There is a spiritual realm, and that there used to be wizards and witch doctor, people that understood these things, and maybe they called them something different, but there is a realm out there that I think people can And probably the closer you are to something, the more you sense it. So what have you seen?
So I'll tell you a couple stories, and I get pretty emotional when I tell these stories. So if I kind
I,
of tear up or
I
gotta,
try to, so don't, yeah,
yeah,
wait, yeah. Like I'm gonna stop you. Like
right.
I'll be going. I can take myself out of the screen though.
Well, so the first one started. My grandma passed away when I was a sophomore in high school, and I didn't really know my grandma very well. It was just kind of we saw her in Ohio. She was a chain smoker. She died of lung cancer at a young age in her 70s, and so I didn't really know her, but we had this close connection. And so after she passed away, and this was the first time it really happened, my mom started drinking wine. And it was not like just a little. She was drinking like 2 to 3 bottles a day. I probably should say 2 bottles a day because she's probably going to watch this, but she was drinking a lot. And it was to the point where my dad and I and my brother, we were worried like, oh my God, like my mom's kind of spinning out of control. She's drinking too much wine. She's not letting go of her mom's death. And, death is, I've been to so many funerals, like more than I can count before the age of 13. Like I was just always at funerals, and I don't know what the point of that was really, but I just always was at a funeral. So, my grandma, it's like so one night, just randomly, she came to me in a dream, and she's standing at the edge of my bed, and it's almost like those dreams to me are I'm awake, but it's still I'm in dreamland. So I'm not technically seeing a ghost, but to me it feels like I'm awake. And so she comes to my bed and she says, and this is where I might get a little teary. She says, "Your mom needs to stop drinking. She's headed down the wrong path. If she goes down this path, she won't, pretty much is going to die. She's not going to survive the next 6 months." And I'm like, okay, I got to tell her this. So I can't just tell her this. And I'm talking back to this person, and it's my grandma. Like, how do I tell her? How she's not going to know anything. Like, how is she going to know this is real? You got to give me something. And she goes, "Remind your mom of the purple blanket." And so I go, okay. So great. So I wake up the next day and I wait I'm like, okay, this is super weird. I remember the dream just like it was yet, like I was there. This purple blanket, I don't know what she's talking about. I don't know. And so I kind of was scared to tell my mom. I was like, she's not going to believe me. I don't know what's going to happen, but my mom's still drinking a ton. I got to do something. So I tell my mom, I say, "Mom, grandma came to me in a dream, your mom. She told me you got to stop drinking. You're going down the wrong path." And my mom's like, "Yeah, whatever. You don't, you didn't know her, and just all this stuff about my, grandma, and I don't know grandma. Why would she tell you this? Blah, blah." And I said, "Oh, by the way, she told me to tell you about the purple blanket."
It's okay.
I knew it every time.
It's all right.
So
All right, man.
she says, "Oh my God, how do you know about the purple blanket?" Damn. And I said, "I'm telling you, it's her." And so she says her mom gave her that purple blanket. Nobody knew about it, not even me. Damn.
Wow. That's
And
crazy.
so, okay, I'm good. And so they, right then and there, she just knew like right away, like, okay, this is my mom speaking through Dan to me. Like, this has to be him because nobody knew about this blanket, not even me. She didn't tell anybody. The only people that knew about it was her and her mom. And right then, my mom just said, put the wine down, stop drinking. She kind of got over her mom's death, and everything kind of just went back to normal. And it was like, okay, everything's good. And it's funny. My mom's reading the book. She just read it just like 2 months ago, and she's like, I can't believe she just forgot about this whole. She's like, "Oh my God, I completely forgot about this whole thing." And she goes, "I still have the purple blanket," and she actually sent me a picture of it. Wow. So it's crazy. Oh, damn. Sorry, I'm good. So that was the first time, and I realized, okay, and even at the time, I didn't think like I thought it was my grandma this whole time. Someone just recently told me, and I don't remember who told me this, but they said, "Do you think it was more of like God or someone acting as your grandma so that you would listen to the voice? Because if it was just a random person, why would I listen to him?"
Right.
And so maybe it had to be someone close to my mom and knew, it could have been like a guardian angel or something. But then the whole purple blanket thing doesn't really make sense unless my grandma might have told in the afterlife, she told her story or something. But it kind of all goes together. And so
Well,
that was the first
the
time it
bottom
happened.
line is it rescued your mother.
Yeah.
And wouldn't God want that? And wouldn't he, and this
Well,
is
I guess he would know about everything and anything,
this
right?
would be my belief is, have you ever read The Shack?
No,
It's
I
a
need
great
to read more.
You should read it. No, you should read. It's written by a gentleman from Oregon, and it actually takes place in Wallowa County. And I won't spoil the story for you, but this guy's daughter's murdered, and he has a real tough time with it. He goes to this shack where she was murdered, and then he falls asleep, and the whole thing is a dream. Well, God comes to him as a black woman.
Oh,
And then there's a movie about it, and it's
should
really
watch it.
good. And I remember when my dad read it, and he was like Mr. Super Christian, and he read the book, and he said, "No, I don't believe that. God isn't a black woman." I'm like, man, you know what, Dad? If you needed, if he knew, if
Yeah.
God knew, the only way you're going to listen to me is if I come to you as a black woman or a circus clown,
Whatever,
or
right.
whatever, that he doesn't love you enough that he will do whatever it takes, to do that. You know what I mean? And that's crazy though. I mean, and I don't mean crazy in a bad way.
No, it was a good thing.
Precious that you got to be that person. But
So
that's kind of what you think that's your thing, right?
Yeah, well, so it's happened 3 more times. And
Okay,
so
give me another one.
the second one was same thing. It was my grandma again. And I was thinking, okay, maybe it's my grandma because I listened the first time and I told the person. So maybe that's why it was my grandma the second time. Because the third time it wasn't, and the fourth time it wasn't either. Yeah, right. The fourth time it wasn't. And so the second time was I used to work for a BMX company, and we would travel across the country doing BMX races. And one time we were all going to Tulsa for like the best race, the greatest race on earth. And my friend at the time got really sick on the drive to Tulsa, and super sick to where he couldn't breathe. It was horrible. I had to take him to the emergency room when we got to Tulsa, and they did like scans on him, and they said he had lung cancer. And we're just like, what? Like, like this is crazy. So they were gonna fly him home. He's gonna do chemo. Like it's like this whole thing, and it just happened within like a couple weeks. So my grandma comes to me in a dream, and we're all in Tulsa. My friend's still in the hospital in Tulsa. I'm in my bedroom or my hotel room by myself. My grandma comes to me, same thing. Like she's standing on the end of my bed. Same thing. It felt like I'm awake, but I'm still dreaming. And she says, "Your friend doesn't have cancer. He needs to get rescanned. He needs to go back to Arizona, go to the Mayo Clinic, and get scanned again. He does not have cancer. And if he goes through chemo, it's going to kill him." And so that next day, I rushed back to the hospital, and I just told my friend, "You need to go." Like, I didn't even hesitate this time. I just straight up told my friend, "You need to go home, go back to Phoenix, go to Mayo Clinic, get tested. You don't have cancer." And then I even told him, like, my grandma told me this. You just got to do it. And at the time, my friend, I mean, we're really close. We're still really close. And he goes, "Okay, let's just do it." So he flew home. He went to the Mayo Clinic. He got scanned, and he had valley fever, which is only found in Arizona, New Mexico, California, Utah, and some of Oregon. So in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they don't know what valley fever is. I actually had valley fever. It's a spore you get from a mushroom that grows in the southeast, and it attaches to your lung, and it can look like skin cancer on a scan.
Oh my God.
And it's curable with antibiotics. And that's what he had. It was crazy.
So let's go back. Let's go into this. Let's go into this. So you feel like, and I don't mean that in a, you feel like you can take people's headaches away, and so explain that.
Empath, yeah.
So the empath thing, and you think this is a trait of this XXY chromosome?
So I used to not, but when I was writing this book and I met the woman in Bend just recently, maybe 6 to 7 months ago, I started thinking maybe this has to do with Klinefelters. It might not. So I'm going to do more research about how many men with Klinefelters can actually have this connection, this sixth sense kind of thing, because I've only talked to 3 people about this thing, and they all 3 have it. They all have these like gifts, and so that's not a big statistic yet. But so I want to see if it's a bigger picture thing. And so after this book's done, I'm going to go back, and I might even write another book just about Klinefelters and how we have this sixth sense thing. If it comes out, it might not, but 3 out of 3 is a pretty big correlation.
And it's pretty interesting too, because from a standpoint of this is a genetic
Disorder.
Difference.
Disorder difference.
We're calling it a disorder. Maybe you're ordered the right way, and the rest of us are disordered. I find that with people with different abilities. I find that with people with Down syndrome that experience Down syndrome. How come God says, "Come to me as a child," and they do it naturally?
Right.
And maybe they're here to teach us how to be more childlike, and not that they're childish. I don't mean that at all. Maybe they understand that we should just care about people and love people. They're here to show us how to do that. So maybe you're here, and here's another this change, this difference that is listed as one of the reasons someone might abort a child. And isn't that interesting that we're aborting children with these special gifts that could be placed here? And yes, to my audience, yes, I'm going out on this speculation thing, but this is what I do when I naturally do this. And God is so huge. He can do whatever he wants, but doesn't that just figure, Dan, that here's people, they're not perfect, so let's get rid of them?
Well, it's the same thing with.
We need to celebrate these people because they're here to show us these special. What if they did that to all the prophets, Jeremiah, Elijah? What if they just? I mean, I know they tried to get rid of them, but what if they tried to get rid of these people? And really, the gift is this different. You got this. It's supposed to be a mistake, but it really was designed that way. Who knows? But it sure is nicer than looking at it. Then you're like a freak.
Well, and the same thing with like autistic kids. Like, I get it. It's a burden on the parents. But really, it's all part of life's challenges. Like, we all are challenged with something. And maybe, I'm a big believer in reincarnation, and that's part of my book as well, is reincarnation. And so and that's why I don't know if I'm Christian. We won't go into that right now, because you could read my book and find out what I really am. But reincarnation, what if that parent did something in a past life that they need to learn to take care of another person instead of themselves? And so that person gets an autistic kid that's on the spectrum because they were selfish in their past life. So I'm just throwing that out there. That's how I feel.
But to me, like especially like you bring up autism, I think that's another one that, these are the most usually, in a lot of cases, black and white.
Everybody gets
very. What all the friends that I have that are on the spectrum like that, they're the people I trust the most because they'll tell me the truth. You know what I mean? God, if we had more people with Asperger's running our country, maybe we'd have somebody that couldn't lie and could actually tell the truth instead of give me some snow job about everything. You know what I mean? Because I've had people in my life where it's like, you'll say something and they'll go, no, that's not true. And this is what it is. And you're going, and it doesn't mean they're always right or you have to agree, but at least it's like, so isn't that interesting? As a culture, we look at people like yourself with this chromosome difference, and we discount them.
Yeah.
But so your curse, is it becoming your gift?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean curse as I hope people don't take it. People
it's not a curse.
Community. But this thing that the world could look at as a curse. I mean, I think that could be anything, from depression to all of it, but if somebody looks at this, I always find that those things in my life that people made the most fun of me about, Dan. I don't know if you find this too. People that the things they made the most fun of me about have turned out to be my gifts. And you know what I think that is? I think that is the enemy of our souls or our life, whatever you want to call it, trying to keep you from finding your destiny. So the people around you, these little bullies, they're really good. Those people are really good at finding your weakness. Oh, Dan, you don't run well. So it starts building up this thing. And then, if we do it right, I think, then God lets it, you find a friend on the back of a door. And then you start finding yourself. And then all of a sudden you realize that those people were stopping you, trying to stop you from becoming Dan Mooney, rather than, and you know what I mean? And I'm saying this to myself too, because I need that encouragement today as I'm speaking too. But it's like, it really is. I think it's that I think this is so interesting because we just know so little about the brain and our psyche and our hearts and how things are connected.
Yeah.
How does your family feel about it? How does your wife feel about this?
So I don't really bring up too much. I mean, the dreamland stuff, I'll tell my wife, like, because I have crazy dreams, like just out there, and I'll tell my wife mostly because I like to interpret the dreams. So the other day I had a dream about my cousin. He passed away in 2020 of a meth overdose, and I haven't seen my cousin since he died. I know that sounds weird because he's dead, but normally people, after they pass, they come to me in a dream and I talk to them for a while. And because my cousin died of a meth overdose and he was on meth most of his life, he was, he probably did worse drugs. He was just, oh, that's funny. Oh my God, a hummingbird just touched the window.
I heard that.
And hummingbirds are in my dream as souls. I wonder, I don't think it's my cousin, but it could be his mom, kind of like, hey, stop that. That was weird.
About your cousin.
Yeah, about your cousin.
Dan, do you find yourself doing, I mean, do you
yeah, that I've seen hummingbirds around here, but none have ever hit this window. And not even any bird has ever hit this window. And there's a mark right there on the window. It just hit the window. Like, to me, that's a sign like that is someone or God telling me, be careful. My cousin might be trying to reach you, but he can't because of some reason. So that's super weird to me. Like, and I take those things like that. That was nuts. And that now, like, okay, so the dream I had about him, I was with these people that knew him. I didn't know him because he lived on the streets for most of his life. I saw him here and there, but we didn't really talk much. Actually, at my grandpa's funeral, I dodged him a few times because I didn't want to talk to him because I figured he was under the influence. And when he's under the influence, I don't like talking to my cousins. It's just, it's hard. And so I dodged him at the funeral so I didn't have to talk to him. And then he died shortly, 2 years after. So I never really saw him again. But in the dream, it was like two women talking to me about his paintings. And they're like, have you ever seen his paintings? And I said, no, I didn't know he was a painter. And they're like, you have to find his paintings. They've been lost. And I don't know if he was a painter. I don't even know what this means. But it makes me want to reach out to parents and kind of see maybe there is a something that I'm missing. Maybe they're not talking about paintings. Maybe they're talking about something else and I'm not seeing it. And so I just have to reach out to my family and see, hey, did cousin have something when he died? I know he didn't have much because he did live on the streets, but maybe there's something that I have to do to connect him with his mom. I don't know. And so it's something bigger that I need to find out.
So what do you hope people get out of this book?
So really, I don't want you to change. So whatever religion you are, stay that religion. Like, I believe that Christians should stay Christians. Hindus should stay Hindus. Don't let people change you. Don't let people let you think other ways. Like, you are you because you're supposed to be you. And so I'm this person because of this man in the door. I would never let someone change me, like, to Christian, to Mormon, to Catholic, whatever, because I know who I am inside. And I'm this person that, speaks to this dreamland. I do all these other weird things. It's like my praying is super strange, but it works for me. And so I don't want to say like the way you pray or the way you talk to God is wrong, because it's not wrong. We're all humans. We all want to be more than what we are. It's kind of this thing it goes back to this crazy Dave Matthews Band song that I won't get into that right now because it's a little weird, but we all want to be more than, we all want to be heroes. We all want to be powerful. We all want to be on stage with a million people looking at us. Like, we all want that, but we all are live separate lives and do all this thing. Don't change who you are just because someone might say, oh, well, what you believe in is wrong. And so, and people have said that to me, like, oh, reincarnation, that can't be true. Well, how do you know? Have you experienced it? No. And I'm not going to say, Christ is not whatever you want to believe is great. And just don't let people change you. Like,
I also want people to look at the XXY community
just
with
compassion. Yeah, compassion.
And that's got to be so hard because, especially right now, because we have man, woman.
Right.
We have this is
it's
not
funny. I almost
transgender thing.
I almost changed my Instagram to third gender, and I was like, no, I better not do that because people will think I'm trans, and I'm not.
Right. But this is a biological, genetic.
Yep. It's real. It's a real thing.
But you're more man in terms of physical.
Yeah.
With some, and I love how Jordan Peterson always puts more feminine characteristics. It's like, it's okay for men to have more feminine characteristics, like feelings, like more more perception things, and then I always know that I'm a man when I get around my wife and I say stupid things and realize
me too.
I am where I tend to be more feeling. I'm not a woman. I don't think like a woman.
So the Native American culture has, they actually show trans as a third gender, and I don't know if that's trans like men that think they're women, not the people that've gotten the surgery. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about people that are in between. And so it could have been people with Klinefelters. Klinefelters has been around forever, so it could have been us just as Native Americans, and because Native Americans can get Klinefelters. I mean, it's across all races. I have a friend in India that has it. We talk on Instagram all the time, and he's super tall, super skinny, and we just talk on Instagram, and same thing. It's like he's the same as me. I mean, technically, we're exactly the same. We're both XXYs, which just he lives in India and I live in the United States, but we're the same. Genetic.
Yeah. So as knowing that and finding these people, the other folks with the same thing, has that made life better?
Yeah. Well, it makes me realize that, even though I live here in Oregon and, I'm so small, like really this network of men, it's all men. It's just like we're everywhere. And the one thing that does suck is, none of us can have kids, so we can't technically pass this on, but it doesn't matter because it's just being passed on anyways. Like, it's God's just giving random people this XXY.
But Dan, doesn't it make it kind of even more intriguing, really? Because if it's a genetic difference that can't be passed on, then he gets to pick who has it. I mean, not that God doesn't anyway,
right?
But he's saying he can do this. But if it's like, this doesn't get passed to somebody else, this goes to you, and then so you're being chosen for these things, rather than, I think you would be a great, because you can look and go, I didn't get this from my father.
No, it's actually proven fact that it's not genetic, because my mom blamed herself for a long time because I'm XXY. So she thought it came from her. It's not proven. It's genetically not proven that it comes from the man or the woman. They don't know where it comes from. So it attaches to the sex gene, and makes us XXYs. It's super weird.
So is that kind of funny that your last name is Mooney? And the stars and all that, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think like, I don't know what's I could look it up really fast. I don't know what Daniel means. You probably know. But I mean, I really think your name is
I don't
given.
remember what
I
Daniel
don't
means.
I think it's given to you. Like, your parents come up with it, but I think it's almost like a whisper from God and going, because
I think they were going to call me George. I know that. And then last minute they called me Daniel. I'm like, oh, thank God. If I was George with XXY, I would have been the laughing stock of the school. Sorry if there's any Georges out there, but really.
I think that's, I'm looking it up real fast.
I don't remember what Daniel, because I think they got it from, because my parents, well, my dad was Catholic. So I think it's just from the Bible. Daniel's in the Bible. But, and my brother, is named Michael. And so
in Hebrew, it means God is my judge.
Oh, that's probably true.
That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks, Mom.
Richard means lion-hearted and ruler. And my wife says, she goes, that is like, because you don't fall for much. Is that the puppy?
Yeah. Go. Sorry.
So Dan, okay, so wrap it up. So when does this book hopefully come out, and how can people find you if they have questions about any of this?
Hopefully the book will be done in October. There was a few things I had to change just recently, just little things, and I did add a couple. Huh?
It's editing. That's life.
Yeah, editing. Exactly.
It happens for the rest of your life. You'll finish the book, and then you'll go back and say, "Oh, now I want to change something else."
Yeah, I know. And then once it's finished, it'll be available on danmooney.com. Also, it might be available on Amazon, which and that's what I'm trying to figure out right now, is the publishing. But it will be published, and then it will be on my website, danmooney.com, and then it will be on Amazon. Or, maybe I'll sponsor some shows, and Rick Dancer can sell a couple of my books.
So you guys, if you do have questions about any of this and stuff like that, rather than make assumptions about Dan and what he believes, find Dan Mooney.com and ask him, and if you have questions, if you have a family member or something that you're thinking about the XXY, and you've never heard anything about that, again, also Dan can connect you to groups of people that can obviously, support is a big part of for all of us with all of our dysfunctions, no matter what they are. I have support.
One other thing I wanted to touch on is so, I grew up I had depression my whole life, and suicide was a big thing. And there's a couple times I almost, killed myself. And so there's a whole section in my book about suicide and why suicide's not an option. And so I have this strong feeling that, if you kill yourself, you pretty much live the same life over again. And so if people knew that, if you do take your life, you're actually not releasing yourself from this person, you're actually starting over as the same person again. Exactly. And then you get tested again at that same point in your life. Are you going to pick that choice again? So I technically believe that I've been Dan Mooney like 15 different times, and I chose not to kill myself this time around. And so I know that's super weird and super strange, but this goes back to my deja vu with dreams. I dream the future a lot. I write all my dreams down in a book, and 9 out of 10 times that exact thing happens within 3 to 4 days. And so dreaming the future is a good thing. Seeing deja vu is great. It's always good to see deja vu. It means you're on the right path. And when you stop having deja vu, Rick, which you just told me a little while ago that you don't have deja vu, it just means something in your life needs to change. Like, you need to follow that path again and get back to having dreams of your future. Because when you stop dreaming future, you are on the wrong path. So maybe, Rick, sorry, you might just be going down the wrong path.
No, that makes complete and total sense. I think, no, and I appreciate that, Dan, because I do, my wife and I actually have a friend, and all this stuff has been going on, just little stuff, the dumbass that tried to fix my sprinkling system that ruined it. The eye doctor.
See that? Even the way you just said that.
Who keeps giving me the wrong contacts. So now I have a green eye and a blue eye. And
hey, some people like that. It might be a good thing for you.
She looks at me and she's like, this is so creepy. I hate this. So I called her up and I said, 1, I don't want to live the rest of my life as an Australian Shepherd. But 2, I want to keep my wife. I've had her 41 years and I'd like to continue with this, but I'm not sure she wants to be married to him because it's a really weird green color. I mean,
I see it. I think it looks great. Makes you look like a warlock.
I went to dinner and the waiter kept looking, kind of going like this. Finally he goes, do you have a blue and a green eye? And I go, no, I have an optometrist that gave me the wrong contact. But then the woman that's in my office that I rent from, she just said, Rick, when things get really crazy, she goes, that usually means that, in her way of seeing the world and a bit like mine, the enemy of your life knows something's coming, changing. I think a clear path is coming. I'm just not there yet. And the enemy of my life knows. So it's like, oh, keep him down. So I won't do what you said earlier is be listening, because when you're in chaos, you don't.
Right. And one thing too is go into nature. Maybe you need to go back to the ranch, the Steen's guest ranch. Go get away from your computer, get away from your phones, and reconnect with nature, and really just sit on a rock and listen, and everything just comes back, and then you're free again.
Yeah,
that's what I do. That's my praying.
You know what, Mr. Mooney, this has been really fun, and I think I know you're going to challenge some people, but like you said, you know what, God, people just let people be who they are.
Yeah,
and then you take like. That would be so weird and so stupid of me, is because maybe for me, I don't see the reincarnation thing, but then, so I'm going to discount everything you said because I don't feel like that's part of what I believe and it's what you believe. Then I miss out on the thing that maybe God's really trying to tell me is, Rick, go sit on a rock, you stupid idiot. And you need to get back on the right path because you're not dreaming anymore. And so there's a place for all of us in this whole thing. And we don't have to agree, because the bottom line is, who was it? Jordan Peterson. Recently, it was in something, and they said, do you believe that the Red Sea was parted by God? And he said, yes, but I didn't experience it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he said, do you believe that Moses hit the rock with the stake? I did.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there. So we take a lot on faith, which is not a bad thing, but we also discount things because they don't fit into the narrative that I was given on the flannel board Jesus, in Sunday school growing up. So you just don't know.
Well, and you don't know. So that's on the History Channel. They try to debunk it, and actually, it was true. There is times when the moon is a different spot that the ocean does actually separate at that spot, and they technically could have walked across this lake, and then the water would have rushed back. And it was like scientifically proved that it does happen, like every 50 years. So technically, I believe that he did part the sea.
And don't you believe that kind of like, to me, it's like, okay, so if God puts together this natural system and nature and how it works, so he's got it's all, because he's got everything has a motion and a co-motion, so here it's going. So is he really gonna just do something like out of this world to change it? No, he's gonna go, oh yeah, you know what, I can part that sea because I have the system already set up. I'll have it timed out perfectly to the 50-year mark when I need this. And then that sea is going to open. They're going to see Moses doing this, but it's still going to open. They're going to go through. And he still did it. But everybody wants to go, no, it has to be a fairy tale, and he can put food coming out of heaven. You know, I mean, it
Well,
wasn't
and
like it was filet mignon.
miracles do happen. I
Yeah.
mean, they happened with my dreams and my mom. I mean, to me,
Right.
that's a miracle. It's almost the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
Miracles do happen. You just got to listen. You got to watch for them, and you just got to listen. Just listen.
All right, Dan, I learned some good stuff tonight, and I think you helped me, and I'm glad about that.
Good. You need to start dreaming.
If you so seriously, and if you sit down, because I have a feeling this is where you and I have some similarities, but when we finish this conversation, something's going to come to you, and so please write me and tell me what that is. Because
something with my cousin for sure, just with that whole hummingbird thing, that was super weird, and I'll let you know what happens with it.
I mean, but if you think, Rick, I need to tell you that you really need to go do this.
Oh yeah.
Feel free to do that, because we're friends, and I'm at the little altar here going, I want answers. I want to know what direction. I'm tired of.
I'll do a little prayer tonight to see if I can get some answers for you, and then I'll give you a call.
Okay, I'll take them. Hey, Dan, thank you.
But you can't win the lottery or nothing crazy like that. I don't do any of those things.
Yeah, no, I just spend it and waste it on something that would, what happened? I'd win the lottery, and then I'd go right back on the path. I'd be stuck. It'd be like I never found anything because I got stuck because of the lottery thing. Thank you for coming on and sharing your soul, and also for being brave enough to talk about this stuff, because I think it's going to be challenging for people, and I think that's good. That's what we try to do. It's called Get Real. So I want people to get real and do it. Dan Mooney.
Again, just be you. Like, really, if you don't like me, just be. It doesn't matter. Just be you.
It's so much easier to be me, because it's really all I know. It's really hard.
I wish I had your hair. I do. I envy of your hair. I love your hair.
I get that a lot. It's like, I wish that paid my bills. Hey, Dan, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
Stay right there for a second. All right. So I hope that really challenges you. And I hope it also opens your eyes to different people, different stuff, what people are thinking. And, for me personally, I'm excited, because I think that's something I've been wanting to understand, is what's the next step. And I think we're all looking for that. And, I bet when Moses saw the burning bush, he had questions. And what do you think happened when he went back and told people, yeah, this burning bush told me to do this? Do you think everybody went, oh yeah, great. What about Mary? When she said, yeah, I'm a virgin and I'm having a baby that's supposed to be a savior. That's what the angel told me. And I'm sure everybody just went, oh yeah, sure. So you got to put it in perspective and see what's going on, and then challenge yourself. Maybe we all need to dream a little bit more. I do, obviously. Share this on your page. Let other people know what's going on. We'll be back next week with more. So post it, share it, and do your thing. I don't know how I'm going to top that one, though. All right. I'll see you guys later. Good night.